Welcome back to another episode of Real Conversation. I'm your host, Nicole.
And I'm Shaquana. And today we're going to talk about the Trump administration. And we're going to just talk about everything that has been going on in the past 2 weeks. As we all know, he was inaugurated on January 20th. And there are a number of executive orders that were signed during his first 2 weeks in office. And we're just going to touch on that. The first thing we're going to talk about is DEI and what that means, what President Trump deems it to mean, and we're just going to go from there.
Oh, Shaquana. So I believe that when Trump looks at DEI, he basically he thinks it only targets the Black and Brown community.
Mm.
But in all reality, the number one group that it does target is the white women and white men. And
Mm. Okay.
according to Department of Labor, like I said, they're on the top, and then there's Latin Americans, Asians, Native Americans, people with a disability, the LGBTQ community, and African Americans at the bottom of that list. And there was a video that I came across, and this woman, she was really distraught about Trump not allowing her to receive her food stamps, her being able to feed her babies. She, it was devastating to to look at, and very hard to hear how distraught she was behind everything, because we shouldn't have to worry about how we're going to feed our families, you know. And what's your thoughts on that?
When it comes to DEI, I think that there are common misconceptions as to who it represents and who actually benefits from it. DEI, in a textbook definition, is, of course, like I said, it stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion, which
Mhm.
we define as diversity as the presence of differences in dimensions of human identity. Now, the diversity, equity, and inclusion clause, that's just talking about the fair treatment and full participation of all people, making sure that groups who have particularly been misrepresented in America, and who have been subject to discrimination based on identity or disability, that they are seen.
Mhm.
And so your point that you made earlier, with you saying that President Trump thinks that it primarily affects African American people, or just Black and Brown people, I believe that's the term you
Right.
use. It could be that, but I think that the lack of knowledge is going to be the downfall of the administration, because there's so many things that he is forming an opinion on that isn't based on facts. And you're right, no one should to have that burden of figuring out how they're going to feed their families. That video that you surfaced, that you talked about, I
Mhm.
saw it, and I'm like, I really empathize for her, because I've never been in a place where I did not know how to feed my children, but I can still empathize from a place of lack, because I didn't always have. So I can
Mhm.
empathize with her from a place of lack. But when you have someone who's never had to have, who's never gone without, I should say, there's a lack of empathy there. And I think that even though that he has, I'm gonna say, born with a silver spoon right in his mouth.
Mhm.
Even though that is the case, there should be a level of empathy for the American people as a whole, whether you're black, brown, white, brown, purple, blue, whatever. There should be some measure of empathy that we have for people who are in a marginalized group.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. So I think the desensitizing of DEI. Like I said, they were like common misconceptions of what that is and the fact that it's not needed. I think that um, some people think that social equalities have already been addressed. They have been addressed because of things like affirmative action, because of things like DEI, and they're not understanding that because the American people, well, majority of American people, in particular white American people, would prefer to sweep that part of history under the rug, right?
Mm.
And it's not something that we can do. We have been set back. There's no doubt about it. The history books prove it. We have been set back, and these laws, these things were put into place for us to be able to gain an advantage, or even just catch up. And women, we've been oppressed for a very long time, and it wasn't
Mhm.
until about the 1960s that we were able to start doing things and getting our voices heard. It is alarming to me how much we are going to be set back if these things continue on. I am just in awe of some of the things that were signed, some of the executive orders that were signed on January 20th. And, I know we're not going to talk about that this episode, but I know hopefully we'll dive into them, one of our episodes. But it is just alarming to see what he wants to roll back, what he wants to just completely take off. Like freedom
Mhm.
of speech and federal censorship. It's like, hey, listen. I understand you want to say what you want to say, but there has to be a level of censorship so that you're not making people feel less than. And it's almost like a dictatorship. And I'm interested to see what happens over the next 4 years, and if I need to move to Costa Rica or something.
Listen, everyone. I think everyone at this moment is making sure that their passport is ready to go, lock and
Yeah,
loaded.
I mean, it's crazy. And while I understand the logic, I do. We want to make America um great again, right? Whatever that means and to whom it means, right? You want to make America great again, but America was built on the backs of other people.
Say that.
America was built on the backs of the immigrants and the slave trade, and
Mm-hmm.
you you these are centuries of policies that have been utilized to um in some ways oppress but also build up. So if you are trying to tear down a whole structure, understand that the American economy will take a hit. Even with the tariffs that he's trying to impose in China, Mexico, and what's the other country? Is China,
Canada.
Mexico, and
Canada.
Canada, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who typically move goods back and forth between the country tariff free. If we're
Mm-hmm.
going to impose tariffs, from what I've been reading, is he's going to impose tariffs on those three countries, and then there may be some retaliatory tariffs placed on us by those countries as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, do you not know? I mean, it's not a World War III, and per se, where we're not pew pewing, right? We're not
Right.
doing that, but we're going to be in an economic war,
Yeah.
and it's alarming. It really is. What do you think about that?
But that's the part that's alarming to me because it's going to be the American people whose pockets are being targeted. Trump, President Trump, doesn't have this problem. He's not worrying about all he cares about is himself in regards to
Yes.
that. What he thinks that he's doing, he thinks he's doing something right, but I don't think. I think he's basing everything off of emotions. They say that's what women do, right?
Mm.
But that seems like that's something that he's doing. Like if someone if uh let's say Canada didn't agree with something that he was trying to put through, but yet his way of targeting them is by going through the tariff. And I'm just using that as an example. I'm not saying that's actually what took place, you know. So it's, I don't know, it's a bit much. I think that the American people are the ones that are going to suffer, and we're not going to really have anyone to bail us out.
Yeah, I mean, we have allies that are upset with us right now in regards to the decisions that are being made. Uh, while they're supposed to benefit the American people, again, I don't know. I don't have enough facts, one, to figure out how it's going to fall, how the chips are going to fall, but they
Mhm.
will fall. And the structure and the backlash that we're getting as the American people, that backlash we're getting isn't it, it's alarming, and that public outcry um, is not for nothing. So they see something. Economics see they're they see something. They're doing their studies and they're running their tests, and they're like, hey, listen, something is not going to pan out how we want it to pan out. And we need you to take a look at this, President Trump, and not just go off of how you feel. There has to be some level of intelligence behind what you're saying and how these things can be put into place. So I guess more to come on that. These next 4 years are going to be tumultuous, and we're going to just have to stick together as American people, and hopefully love is what carries us through, because being divisive,
Right.
it's
Hmm.
not going to be something that is going to work out for us in the long run. We have
Mm.
to stand strong, we have to stand united, and we have to fight for the rights that we and our ancestors have fought for so long. We have to fight for those rights. So I guess more to come on that. So, as we all know, that this second term for Trump, there has been so much chaos, so much confusion, and it was kind of expected. It doesn't come as a surprise. But do you think that he is abusing his executive power, and how can Congress push back?
Oh, that's a great question. I do think that he is abusing his power.
Yeah.
President Trump is basically like a big bully on the schoolyard, in the schoolyard. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what he gives off to me. How he's abusing his power is by firing all the people that don't agree with his methods. Um, and if you don't agree with him, if you're not on board, you gotta go. You know,
Hmm.
and I don't think I mean, if you think about it, if we get rid of all the people that don't agree with us, um, like there be no one, nobody left. You know, like you have to have that diversity. You have to
Yeah.
have, you know, people who can. I'm sorry, my words is just not coming together here, but it's just you have to have, you
Yeah.
know, it has to be two sides so that everyone can come to a common ground to have a better result to help, especially when it comes to this country. I mean, when it comes to him getting rid of the head of TSA, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's crazy. The head of the aviation security, uh and who all these people that he's firing at this moment just because he can, not because they're not good at their job, not because someone messed up somewhere, because he can. That's an abuse of power. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. But I think the most surprising part about this, and just about the Donald Trump administration right now, is that there's still people here in the year 2025 who maintain the capacity to be surprised. about his actions, right? It
Yeah.
is, for me, I knew that this was coming. The abuse of
I think we
power.
all knew this was coming. That's why.
Absolutely. Well, I'm listen, but that's what I'm saying. Like, we knew there. The majority of the people, the American people, knew that this was coming. That this would be the outcome. But there
Mhm.
are people who are like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe he did this." What do you mean? The writing has been on the wall for a minute now, right? And I feel as if when it only starts to be looked at when it starts to affect a bunch of people, and
Mhm.
people who are not who have known, excuse me, people who have not normally been affected, right? So now
Mhm.
you want to take a look at things. You're like, oh my goodness, what is he doing? Oh, because it affects you, it affects your daughter,
Oh.
it affects your son, it affects your livelihood.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. Because this is what we've been trying to tell you for years, and you did not want to listen. Now, what I want to make note of is that he is firing so many different people, and what he wants is an administration of yes men. Okay?
Yes.
Yes men, because prior to that, in his old term, they were he was getting pushback from
Mhm.
people. They were like, "You cannot do that. That's unconstitutional. You can't do this, and you can't do this." Now you have people in your administration who don't really have the experience. They don't know what to do. They've never been in politics or even in a position of power where they're responsible for people and responsible for the livelihood of people. And that's just my opinion. And maybe, you may have a different one, but that's my opinion.
No, I
So
totally
you
agree with
have a
that.
bunch of yes men who won't stop you. So now it's up to Congress to be able to say, listen, this is unconstitutional. This is not something that you can do. Similar to what they did to President Obama. Nope,
Mhm.
you can't do this. Nope, you
Mhm.
can't do that. They have to stop him, and they have to stop him in his tracks before he does more damage. I mean, the amount of damage that he has done
Hmm.
and he, when was he inaugurated? January
That
20th. It is now
Jenna Smith.
February 2nd, and he has done so much. And in order for the United States of America, to remain a government of laws and not of men, Congress
Mhm.
needs to push back. They need to push back.
That's just like. Do you remember when they sat there and said, Black History Month was canceled? How can you
I'm black
cancel
all the
Black History
time.
Month?
I'm black all the time. Black History Month, that's a month. I'm black every day. It's not canceled. So for me, like that, there's certain things that they say is crazy, but and the what really I think took people by surprise, because there were a bunch of white Americans that were affected by this insurrection
Yeah.
on January 6th.
Mhm.
When he pardoned the attackers in the
Mhm.
January 6th insurrection, it's like, oh, okay, now it affects you, because there were decorated officers that were killed. They were decorated. There were people in that actually were there, delegates that were affected by this. So now you're like, oh, his pardon of the January 6th attackers is an abuse of his power. Where was that when he was doing all the other stuff?
Hmm.
Like, come on, now that it affects you, it's a problem. Come on. I'm going to sit back and drink my coffee and my tea. First of all, I already know who's on the throne. I do not trust in man for anything. So
Nope.
I know who's on the throne already. And I'm going to sit back and watch these things happen, watch these people put a foot in their mouths and get what they voted for, all
Ugh.
while making sure my liberties and my family's liberties, and even like fighting from the sidelines with the people in my community, and
Mhm.
making sure that these elected officials that we place in office are doing what they're supposed to do in order to protect our civil liberties, and that's it.
And that's why everybody needs to understand, like, when these other elections, it's not just about who president is. You got to go out for these other elections, because who you elect in your that's closest to you in your area is the ones that are here protecting you, for
That's
sure.
right. That's right. That is right. So, I mean, with all of the things that are happening, we continue to stay in prayer, and we continue to, but not only stay in prayer, but we need to get out there and make our voices heard, and be on the side of right, because we have to stand for something. If you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. So we need to stand up as a people, as an American people, and fight for our civil liberties. So,
Stand united.
hopefully, I don't want to wish any bad on anyone.
Of course not.
But we want for the right things to happen, and we want liberty and justice for
For
all.
all.
For all, right? That's what
That's
we
it.
signed up for. I didn't sign up for anything else. I signed up
Oh,
for liberty and justice for all.
did you
So,
hear? Did you hear about them trying to get him to be president for a third term? Like,
but
well,
only him. But only him.
but
It
only
only
him.
applies to him. It
So I
only
said,
applies to
okay,
him.
so if that's the case, that means previous presidents can rerun again too, huh?
No, that's why I said it only applies to him, because he is saying, um, he served one term and then was booted out. Now he's serving a second term. So it says that no president can serve two consecutive terms. He's saying I didn't serve two consecutive terms. I only served one, and then I was booted out. Now I should be able to serve two consecutive terms.
Or was he really booted out though? Because last time I checked, he was there to the very end.
According to him, okay? It was an injustice, okay? There was an injustice. The votes were thrown out, and all that good stuff, okay? So that is the clause that he seeks to play on. It's really like semantics, right? It's,
Yeah.
oh, no president can serve two consecutive terms. He's like, listen, I didn't serve two consecutive, so I should be able to do this. Obama served two
Makes
consecutive.
sense.
He wouldn't be able to come back.
Right.
You understand? So that is, but only for him, because
Only for
there's
him.
nobody else that would be able to do that, right? There's no
No.
one else that would be able to do that. Only for him. Starting in 2025, this is the new executive order. Get
I
the
feel like we got Bloomberg back in office. Remember when Bloomberg was the only one that was to run for mayor a third term, and the third time is when he actually got paid because every other
tyrants,
time he would only get $1.
tyrants. Okay, this is what it's almost moving to like a dictatorship. So you want to come back in and sign this executive order, you are abusing your power. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
that's what you're doing. And like I said, I don't know enough to speak on all of the things, and I genuinely don't speak on politics,
Yeah.
because it's a sensitive subject for many people, and I've
Mhm.
seen how this particular presidency already has caused division
Mm.
in groups of people. I see
Yeah.
on Facebook they're fighting, delete me now. I'm like, oh my goodness, what is going on? And a lot of people are placing emotions into it, but I get why, because when you're messing with my money, you're messing with my
Mhm.
family. You're messing with my
Mhm.
civil liberties, like, and
Yeah.
you're not caring about it. So I understand why emotions are being placed in at the forefront of the arguments that people are having.
But this is the reason why it doesn't matter who you believe. It doesn't matter if you believe in the system or not. You still got to get out there and vote. You cannot
Yeah,
not go out there and vote and then have all these things to talk about when things start going wrong. Take it behind to those polls and vote for your party.
yeah, for sure. But you know what? People are going to say that they voted. We don't know if people voted. We don't know. And a
And
lot of
a
people
lot of people
now,
did
they're kind
not
of like,
vote.
they're backing out. They're saying, oh, when I remember speaking to one gentleman, and he was complaining about what was going on, and I'm like, well, did you vote? And he had like this silence about him. I'm like, well, did you vote? Right? And he said, nah, I ain't vote. So I'm gonna need you to zip your lips. because no vote was a vote for him.
Mm-hmm.
And understand that. So now when it affects you and your family directly, I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to hear anything.
Yep.
Okay? I don't want to hear anything. So it
Written
is,
buried.
and that's what I'm saying when it causes a division, because now I'm looking at you like, what? You didn't even
Mm-hmm.
exercise your right.
Exactly.
One, not because, and I personally, the candidates, I didn't agree with any of them.
Do
I
we ever though?
I didn't agree with any of them, but it was for me, uh, exercising my right that my ancestors had fought for.
That
You
part.
know, like and it's like they went through so many different things. They were hosed down with fire hoses. You know how much power is behind a fire hose? You know
First,
what
it
I'm
had to
saying?
been. Sorry.
So it is something that I said to myself, like, even though I personally didn't like any of the candidates, I didn't think that any of them were qualified
Mm-hmm.
to this level of government, how or have that
Agreed.
level of executive power. However, I voted for the person that would have the most compassion for the American people, and I stand by that behind that vote,
Mm-hmm.
because Kamala would have had the most compassion, and even with the response to certain things that are happening, in the world, her response is diplomatic. Her response is classy, and
Mm-hmm.
his response is to blame, and
Right.
and 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 it just is. I didn't vote for that.
And
I
people
didn't vote for that.
forget it. She was thrown into the presidency. You know what I mean? The to run for that. So
Yeah.
she didn't get to really prepare how how everything was going to run. But I think
Hmm.
she still did a great job in such a short time span. You know what I mean?
As far as, because we
As
could
far
talk about that,
as
like she was pushed into the presidency, and I think that
Mhm.
into the running. And
Yes.
I think the problem with the American people was, and that's something that I had an issue with as well, is I did not choose. We're supposed to be able
Mhm.
to choose our Democratic nominee. We're supposed
Yeah.
to be able to choose that, and because we weren't able to, so many people harped on that. Like, okay, you know what? I didn't choose her, so let me go this way, but not
But that was
realizing,
the dumb part.
yeah,
It's still
it's
your
not.
party.
Listen, I understand. I completely understand, but there's a certain clause that says, and I'm a Christian, so there's a certain clause in the Bible that says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge."
Mhm.
Lack of knowledge, lack of knowledge has brought us here. It has brought us here. So we're gonna see what happens in the future. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what is done and how the American people stand up for one another and show love to one another during this time,
Yeah.
because we're going to need it. We're going to need it.
We're
So
going
we
to have
need
to
to
stand
be
together.
on. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, and we'll see what happens, but more to come on that situation as well. We're hoping that things get better, and we're hoping that he has a change of heart, so that he'll be able to understand the gravity of the decisions that he's making right now. So more to come on that.
Okay, so we're going to end this episode out by talking about the numerous plane crashes that happened within this past week.
Oh, yes. Our hearts and prayers go out to all the victims, all the families involved in the plane crash in DC. There was also a plane crash in Philly over the past week. And I believe the new development on a plane that actually caught fire in
Mm,
Houston. I believe it was a United Airlines flight from Houston to New York, which thankfully, um, all of the passengers were evacuated. So
okay.
I'm happy about that. That was not a
Fatal.
terrific, I mean, sorry, a fatal ending.
Yeah.
But going back to the plane crash in DC, that was just unbelievable when I saw it. And I saw that it was a commercial airline, and then as well as a Black Hawk helicopter. And I'm still trying to figure out how that happened.
Did you hear that the pilot was 28 years old and this was his first time flying?
Okay.
That's crazy. Like
I
even
did not
even
hear
though that
that.
shouldn't matter, but
Right.
that I think that's a big deal.
It really is. And to be so young, I don't understand again, how that happened, whether it was his first time flying or not. It's a Black Hawk helicopter with
Hmm.
numerous um, radar instruments and things of that nature that would have been able or should have been able to detect another aircraft. Not, it wasn't another Black Hawk, it was an aircraft carrying 64 people. So I'm still trying to figure that out. And then we fast forward to, 2 or 3 days later, where there a medical jet crashes in Philly and that kills about 7 people. So
Hmm.
all in all, we have like 64 people on that flight, plus I believe three in the in the Black Hawk plane, as well as the other
Yes.
seven. And my numbers could be wrong, but it's around that. So we're talking around 80 American lives that were lost. And it's like, what happened? And I understand that investigations are ongoing,
Yeah.
but I really would like to know what happened and what failed.
And why so many in such a short span of time? Like it doesn't make any sense. Too many discrepancies going on, especially with
Yeah,
these
and
aircrafts.
yeah, and our president's response
Hmm.
to the DC plane crash was not based on facts. It was just pure emotion and opinion in there. And I don't really want to go back to that because we talked about his level of empathy that he has toward certain situations. I think the
Yeah.
response to blame was the worst response. I
Yeah.
think because he did not even address the fact that people lost their lives, and he did not even put it out there um, with facts. There were no facts behind what he said, and it was just so insensitive. And you know,
Very
I
unprofessional as well. Very
I don't even know what to
unprofessional.
say. I
As
don't
a
know what
as
to
a
say.
as
I
a
don't understand.
president of the United States, that's why there is a video going around showing the difference between President Trump and President Obama when it came to a plane crash. Total
Oh,
different.
really?
Like the it's listen, it's like I don't want to be rude, but it's like when you show a smart man versus a dumb man. That's like,
Ooh.
and I'm only going off
Mm,
of the way the videos are looking. I'm not,
yeah.
I, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense because the word that came out of his mouth was he has common sense. What does that have to do with what is being asked of him in regards to a plane crash? Him blaming DEI policies or Democrats. What does that have to do with the plane crash?
Well, can we agree that because a lot of people are pitting, President Obama, former President Obama,
Mhm.
and President Trump, they're putting them, they're kind of comparing them. But can we agree that his response was a response that no other president in history would have had to
None.
such a tragedy? No other
None. Not,
president
not
in
even
the
President
history.
Reagan.
No,
Former President Reagan.
no other president would have had that response that they had. They would have, um, of course, addressed the American people in an empathetic way,
Yeah.
and then still said, maybe details to come or something to that effect. Because, like I said,
Ongoing
everything that he said,
investigation.
ongoing investigation, something, right? Because even if you even thought that. It should never come out because it was insensitive. That's not the primary focus. The primary focus was that people lost their lives. Innocent people lost their lives. Innocent American
That
citizens
part.
lost their lives. Have some sort of empathy, it is it's a I have no words, no more words for that. So with that being
Yeah.
said, we thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. We are continuously praying for this country, continuously praying for the people who were affected by the plane crashes, and we of course want you to continue to show love, continue to operate from a place of love,
Mhm.
continue to just be who America or what America needs at this moment. We do not need hate. We don't need division. We don't need any of that
At
that
all.
will cause us to be pushed back 200 years. We don't need it. So play into the
Oh,
narrative of love.
together, and we're stronger
Yeah,
together
we're
than we
stronger
are apart.
together. Yes, absolutely. We are stronger together than we are apart. And so, again, we thank you for watching. We thank you for tuning in. You can, of course, find us on many different platforms and at real_combos.podcast on YouTube and Instagram, right, Nicole?
Yes.
And on Facebook we're under Real Conversation. So, and all of that will be placed, of course, at the end of the video. But again, we thank you so much for tuning in, and God bless.